I was standing at the stove, stirring a pot of chicken noodle soup nobody had asked me to make, when I realized I could disappear tomorrow and my son wouldn't notice for a week, maybe longer. The thought came to me quietly, the way truth often does, not with drama or tears, just a cold certainty settling in my chest like ice water. I turned the burner down to simmer and dried my hands on the apron I'd had for 15 years, the one with the oil stain near the hem that never came out no matter how many times I washed it. From the living room, I could hear Tyler on the phone, my 40-year-old son sitting on my couch, talking to his wife Vanessa about their upcoming vacation to Hawaii. $500 a night for the hotel. I'd heard that correctly. $500. It had been 3 months since he'd paid me back the $200 I'd loaned him to fix his transmission. "Babe, I promise, this time we're getting that ocean view room," Tyler was saying, his voice loud and animated in a way it never was when he talked to me. "You deserve it after the year you've had." I walked into the living room, wiping my hands even though they were already dry. Tyler was sprawled across the sofa, one leg thrown over the armrest, completely at home in the house where he'd grown up but hadn't lived in for 12 years. "Tyler, honey," I said softly, "can we talk for just a minute?" He didn't look up, just held up one finger in that universal gesture for wait. Then, when I didn't move, he glanced at me with a frown, the kind of look you'd give a dog that's barking too much, and physically turned his hand toward me, palm out. "Stop." I backed away, like I'd been doing for years. For decades, really, if I was being honest with myself. I went back to the kitchen, poured the soup into a glass container, covered it with plastic wrap, and put it in the refrigerator. No one would eat it. I knew that. Tyler would leave before dinner without saying goodbye. But I made it anyway because that's what I did. Cook, clean, exist in the margins of other people's lives. It was March in Pittsburgh, the kind of gray, wet March that makes you forget the sun ever existed. Through the kitchen window, I could see the neighbors' daffodils trying to push through the half-frozen ground, and I felt a strange kinship with them, something trying to bloom in conditions that weren't quite ready to support life. I touched the counter, the same Formica I'd wiped down thousands of times, and felt the weight of all those years pressing down on my shoulders. 69 years old, 26 years at the same accounting firm, 32 years since my husband Thomas died and left me with an 8-year-old son and a 5-year-old daughter. I'd done it all. Worked 2 jobs, wore the same winter coat for 10 years, skipped meals so Tyler and Rachel could have seconds. And somehow, somewhere along the way, I'd taught them that I didn't matter. That I was just there. Like wallpaper, like furniture. Tyler left 20 minutes later without eating the soup, without saying goodbye, without even acknowledging I existed. The door just closed behind him, and he was gone. 2 days later, my daughter Rachel showed up unannounced. I was folding laundry in the living room when I heard her car in the driveway, that distinctive rattle of her 10-year-old Honda that needed a new muffler. Before I could even get to the door, it burst open and my 2 grandchildren came barreling in like a small hurricane. Mason, 7 years old, made a beeline for the TV remote. Lily, 5, was already demanding juice at the top of her lungs. And Rachel walked in behind them, phone in hand, not even looking at me. "Mom, I need you to watch them today," she said, her thumbs flying across her screen. "The babysitter canceled last minute, and I have a really important meeting I can't miss." It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact, a foregone conclusion. Of course Audrey would watch them. That's what Audrey did. "Rachel, sweetheart, I have a doctor's appointment this afternoon," I said, keeping my voice even. "I've had it scheduled for 4 months. She finally looked up from her phone, and for just a second, I saw annoyance flash across her face before she smoothed it into a pleading expression. "Mom, please, this meeting is huge. It could mean a promotion. You can reschedule, can't you? You know how hard it is to find childcare." I did know. I'd been Rachel's childcare for 7 years, unpaid, on call, always available. I'd canceled that same doctor's appointment twice before for similar reasons. "I'll leave you money for food," Rachel said, already heading back toward the door. She blew me a kiss over her shoulder without turning around. "You're the best, Mom. I'll pick them up by 6, I promise." She was gone before I could say another word. I stood in the hallway, listening to her car start and pull away, while Mason turned the TV volume up to a level that made my teeth hurt. I called the clinic. The receptionist sighed when I said I needed to cancel. "Mrs. Pembroke, this is the 3rd time," she said, her voice flat with judgment. "We'll have to charge you the cancellation fee." "I understand," I said. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." After I hung up, I stood there holding the phone, wondering why I was always apologizing. Sorry for existing. Sorry for having needs. Sorry for taking up space in a world that had clearly decided I didn't deserve any. I spent the afternoon watching cartoons with Mason and Lily, made them ham and cheese sandwiches they barely touched because they wanted pizza, broke up 3 fights, cleaned up spilled juice, and the whole time I felt myself getting smaller and smaller, like I was fading into the background of my own life. Rachel showed up at 8:15, not 6, smelling like expensive perfume and carrying a shopping bag from Nordstrom that probably cost more than I spent on groceries in a month. The kids were already asleep on the couch, exhausted from running circles around me all day. "Oh, Mom, you let them fall asleep here," Rachel said, shaking Mason awake with more force than necessary. "They're going to be impossible to get down tonight." No thank you. No how was your day. No acknowledgement that I'd just given up 9 hours of my life and a doctor's appointment I desperately needed so she could go to her meeting. And shop. I saw the Nordstrom bag. I wasn't stupid. "I have yoga early tomorrow," Rachel said, already herding the kids toward the door. "Thanks, Mom. You're a lifesaver." The door closed. I stood in the hallway again, in that same spot where I'd stood that morning, and looked at the walls of my own house as if they belonged to a stranger. Everything smelled like exhaustion, like years of not mattering, like decades of being the person who was always there, so reliable that no one noticed I was also disappearing. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed with the lights off, staring at the ceiling, and tried to remember the last time someone had asked me how I was. Really asked. Not the automatic "how are you" people say while checking their phones, but a real question, looking me in the eye, waiting for an honest answer. I couldn't remember. The next morning, Tyler showed up again, this time with Vanessa. I was making coffee when I heard the knock, 3 sharp raps that somehow sounded entitled. When I opened the door, they were both standing there with expressions I'd seen before, the kind of look people get when they need something and they're already planning their pitch. "Mom, we need to talk," Tyler said, and something in his tone made my stomach drop. Vanessa was wearing white jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost what I made in a week. She smiled at me, but it was the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. Professional. Calculated. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd celebrated Tyler's birthdays, where I'd served thousands of dinners, where I'd existed in silence for so many years I'd lost count. Tyler was fidgeting with his coffee mug, turning it in circles. Vanessa sat perfectly still, her hands folded on the table like she was in a business meeting. "Mom," Tyler began, not meeting my eyes, "we know you've been saving, and we have this incredible opportunity. Vanessa wants to open a med spa, and we just need a small loan to get started." Small. The word floated in the air like an obvious lie. "How much?" I asked, though I already knew it wouldn't be small. Nothing ever was. $50,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. I felt the floor shift beneath my feet. $50,000. My entire life savings. The money I'd accumulated penny by penny, working overtime every chance I got, denying myself every small pleasure, living on the bare minimum so I'd have something, anything, for my old age. "Mark, I don't have that kind of money," I said, and heard how weak my voice sounded. Tyler and Vanessa exchanged a look, one of those couple looks that said they'd anticipated this response and had a plan for it. "Mom, I know you have savings," Tyler said, his voice taking on an edge of frustration. "And this isn't just asking for money, it's an investment. We'd pay you back with interest. In 2 years, maybe 3, maybe never," I thought. But I didn't say it. Vanessa leaned forward, her expression softening into something that was probably supposed to be sincere. "Mrs. Pembroke, I've been working toward this for 5 years. I have the business plan, the location scouted, everything ready. We just need the initial capital, and you'd be part of something really special." What she meant was, "You'd be giving us your money." "I can't, Tyler," I said quietly. "I'm sorry, but I can't." Tyler stood up so abruptly that his chair scraped across the floor with a sound that made me flinch. "It's always the same with you, Mom. You never support our dreams." The unfairness of that statement took my breath away. I'd supported every dream Tyler ever had. I'd paid for his college when he changed majors 3 times. I'd co-signed his first car loan. I'd babysat every time he and Vanessa wanted a weekend away. I'd given and given and given until there was almost nothing left. But I didn't say any of that. I just sat there, feeling something inside me crack in a different way. Not with sadness this time, but with a strange, cold clarity. Vanessa's family has already contributed $30,000, Tyler said. And there it was, the sentence that changed everything. Her parents believe in us. Why can't you do the same? I looked at him, really looked at my son, and saw it clearly for the first time. I wasn't being compared to some abstract standard of motherhood. I was being compared to Vanessa's mother. And I was losing. Not because I hadn't given enough, but because no matter how much I gave, it would never be as much as Vanessa's family. Because they had money and boundaries and self-respect, and I had what? A lifetime of sacrificing myself and calling it love? Tyler, I said slowly, each word deliberate. Vanessa's mother gave you $30,000? Yes, he said defensively. She believes in supporting family. I see. And I did see. So clearly it hurt. And did her mother raise you? Did she work 2 jobs after your father died? Did she skip meals so you could eat? Mom, that's not fair. No, I interrupted, and my voice was stronger now. What's not fair is that you only measure love in dollars. What's not fair is that I gave you everything I had, and it's still not enough. Vanessa took Tyler's arm. We should go, she said quietly. This obviously isn't a good time. They left without saying goodbye. The door shut with a heavy thud that echoed through the empty house. I sat at that kitchen table for a long time after they were gone, staring at my coffee as it went cold. And I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. I couldn't keep doing this. I didn't want to. I deserved more than being invisible. I deserved more than being valued only for what I could give. For the first time in my 69 years, I was going to choose myself. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of silence from both my children. No calls, no texts, nothing. I should have been hurt. Maybe I was. But mostly I felt peaceful, like I'd been holding my breath for decades and had finally exhaled. It was a Tuesday morning when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. I'd gotten into the habit of letting unknown numbers go to voicemail, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Pembroke? This is David Porter from Human Resources. We need you to come to the main office tomorrow. It's important. My heart started racing. After 26 years at the same accounting firm, working in the same small office at the same desk by the window that overlooked the parking lot, I was sure they were going to fire me. I was 69 years old. They probably wanted someone younger, someone who understood all the new software, someone who didn't need reading glasses to see the computer screen. I arrived at the main office the next day with sweaty palms and a knot in my stomach. The building was huge. Marble floors, plants that looked more expensive than my car, a security desk with a bored guard who made me sign in. David Porter met me in the lobby. He was younger than me by at least 20 years, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary, and he was smiling in a way I couldn't interpret. Carol, he said, shaking my hand. Thank you for coming. Let's go to the conference room. We rode the elevator in silence. He made small talk about the weather. I wondered if they made people come all the way downtown just to fire them, or if this was some kind of corporate courtesy I didn't understand. The conference room had windows overlooking the city, the kind of view I'd never had in my 26 years with the company. Mrs. Pembroke, David said, sliding a folder across the table. We'd like to offer you a promotion. I stared at him. The words didn't make sense. Promotion? Regional Director of Accounting, he continued. The position is in Phoenix, Arizona, but it comes with a 70% raise and a full relocation package. The room tilted. 70%. Phoenix, Director. Me? It was all I could manage. You, David confirmed, his smile widening. Mrs. Pembroke, we've reviewed your work over all these years. Your accuracy is flawless. You've never had a significant error in 2.5 decades. And frankly, we need someone we can trust absolutely in that region. Someone with your integrity and experience. I sat there, stunned, as he explained the details. The salary. More money than I'd ever imagined making. The apartment they'd helped me find. The moving assistance. The start date in 6 weeks. Can I think about it? I asked, though I already knew my answer. Of course. We'd like to know by Friday, if possible. I left that office walking on a cloud. For the first time in decades, someone had seen me. Someone had noticed my work, my effort, my existence. Not because of what I could give them, but because of what I'd already proven I could do. I got in my car and sat there for 10 minutes staring at the folder in my hands. Then I picked up my phone to call Tyler. He didn't answer. I texted, "I have something important to tell you." 4 hours later, he replied, "Busy mom, talk later." I called Rachel. She actually answered, but I could hear restaurant noise in the background, laughing, clinking glasses, the buzz of people having fun. "Mom, I'm at lunch. Is it urgent?" "I got promoted," I said. "I'm moving to Arizona for work." "Oh, that's great." She sounded distracted. "Hey, can I call you back? We just got our food." She hung up before I could say anything else. I sat in my car in that parking lot, still holding the phone, and felt something shift inside me, something fundamental and permanent. Nobody had asked where in Arizona. Nobody had asked when I was leaving. Nobody had asked if I needed help packing, or if I was nervous, or if I'd ever even been to Phoenix before. That night I sat on my couch, the same couch where Tyler had ignored me 3 weeks ago, and made a decision. I would take the job, and I wouldn't tell them anything else. If they didn't care enough to ask, I wouldn't volunteer the information. I would move to Arizona, start my new life, and finally, learn what it felt like to exist for myself instead of just for them. I signed the acceptance papers that Friday. I started looking at apartments online, small, modern places with big windows and views of mountains I'd only seen in pictures. I began packing, quietly, one box at a time. And I did it all in silence, just as I'd done everything else in my life. But this time, the silence felt different. This time, it felt like freedom. The drive from Pittsburgh to Phoenix took 3 days. 3 days of highway rest stops and cheap motels, of sunrise coffee in paper cups, and sunset views that made my chest ache with something that felt dangerously close to hope. I arrived on a Thursday evening in late April. The heat hit me the moment I stepped out of my car, dry and immediate, so different from Pittsburgh's damp cold. The apartment complex rose up before me, all southwestern stone and desert landscaping, palm trees swaying against a sky that was still bright at 7 p.m. 12th floor, corner unit. I rode the elevator up with my heart pounding, carrying just a suitcase and my purse. The moving company wouldn't arrive with my furniture until tomorrow, but I had the keys, and that was enough. The door opened to reveal hardwood floors the color of honey, windows that stretched from floor to ceiling, and a view that took my breath away. The city sprawled out below me, and beyond it, the McDowell Mountains rose up purple and ancient against the darkening sky. It was small, just one bedroom, a living area, a kitchen with appliances that actually worked. But it was mine, only mine. No one else's needs to consider, no one else's mess to clean, no memories of being invisible embedded in the walls. I stood in the center of the empty living room and turned in a slow circle, and then, for the first time in longer than I could remember, I laughed. Not a polite chuckle or a forced smile, but a real laugh that came from somewhere deep in my chest. That first night, I slept on an air mattress in the middle of the living room floor, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like the plastic it came in. I had no curtains, no furniture, no pictures on the walls, but I had peace. A silence that didn't hurt. A silence that, for the first time in decades, felt like freedom instead of loneliness. The office was everything my old workspace wasn't. Modern, bright, full of people who actually looked at me when I spoke. "Mrs. Pembroke, welcome." Robert Sullivan, everyone called him Rob, greeted me on my first day with a genuine smile and a firm handshake. He was in his early 50s, with gray threading through his dark hair and laugh lines around his eyes. "I'm the senior accountant. I'll be showing you around and helping you get settled." "Please call me Audrey," I said, and realized it was the first time in years I'd wanted someone to use my first name. "Audrey it is." Rob led me through the office, introducing me to the team. They all stood up to shake my hand. They called me Director Pembroke, with respect, not the kind of automatic deference people gave to titles they didn't really mean. They asked my opinion in meetings. They listened when I spoke. At lunch that first day, Rob took me to a small cafe down the street. "I know moving is rough," he said as we waited for our sandwiches. "Especially at—" He stopped himself, looking embarrassed. "At my age?" I finished for him, and smiled to show I wasn't offended. I'm 69, Rob, you can say it. I was going to say especially across the country, but yeah, he grinned. My mom moved from Boston to Florida at 72. Best decision she ever made, she says. Says she should have done it decades earlier. I think I know what she means, I said quietly. Over the next few weeks, I fell into a rhythm I hadn't known was possible. I woke up at 6 not because someone needed me, but because I wanted to watch the sunrise paint the mountains gold. I made my coffee slowly, without rushing, without interruptions. I chose my clothes based on what made me feel good, not what was practical for cooking or cleaning. I bought furniture piece by piece. A gray sofa that was more comfortable than beautiful. A small dining table. A reading lamp. I turned the balcony into my sanctuary. A chair. A small table. Plants that somehow thrived in the Arizona heat. The text I'd sent to Tyler and Rachel, settled in well, everything's great, had gotten minimal response. Tyler sent a thumbs-up emoji. Rachel didn't respond at all. It should have hurt more than it did, but I was too busy discovering who I was when I wasn't being someone's mother, someone's employee, someone's unpaid labor. I was just Audrey, and Audrey, I was learning, was actually pretty good company. On a Saturday morning in June, my doorbell rang unexpectedly. I opened it to find my sister Helen standing there with a small rolling suitcase and that mischievous grin she'd had since we were kids. "Surprise," she said, pulling me into a tight hug. "Helen," I stepped back, stunned. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see your new life, obviously." She rolled her suitcase inside, immediately going to the windows. "Oh my God, Audrey, look at this place. Look at that view." Helen was 4 years younger than me, divorced, no children, living a life I'd always secretly envied. She worked as a freelance graphic designer, traveled constantly, answered to no one. We talked on the phone regularly, but I hadn't seen her in person in almost a year. "How long are you staying?" I asked. "Just the weekend. I had some days off and wanted to see the city." She turned from the window, her expression softening. "And I wanted to see you. Really see you. You sounded different on the phone the last few months. Lighter." "I feel lighter," I admitted. "We spent the weekend together, and it was like being young again. Helen made me laugh until my sides hurt. We went to a French bakery where I bought croissants that flaked butter all over my shirt. We explored a farmer's market where I bought flowers. Bright, impractical flowers, just because they were beautiful. We hiked a trail in the foothills, and I discovered that my 69-year-old body could still climb a mountain if given the chance. On Sunday morning, we had breakfast on my balcony. The city was quiet, the heat not yet oppressive, the mountains clear against a blue sky. "You look different," Helen said suddenly, studying me over her coffee cup. "Not just happy. You look present, like you're finally living in your own life instead of watching it from the sidelines." The observation made my throat tight. "Is it that obvious?" "To someone who knows you?" "Yeah," she paused. "Have Tyler and Rachel seen this place? Seen you like this?" I shook my head. "They haven't asked." Helen's jaw tightened. "Of course they haven't." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Audrey, can I ask you something? And you can tell me it's none of my business." "Go ahead." "Why do you still protect them? Even now? Even when they've shown you over and over that they only care when they need something?" I looked out at the mountains, thinking about how to answer. Because they're my children. And maybe I'm still figuring out the difference between loving them and destroying myself for them. "That's fair," Helen said. "But you know what? I think you've already figured it out. I think that's why you're here." Before she left for the airport that afternoon, Helen insisted on taking one last photo. "For my Instagram," she said. "Stand on the balcony. Let me get the city behind you." I felt ridiculous posing, but I stood where she directed, balcony railing behind me, the Phoenix skyline spreading out to the mountains, a coffee cup in my hand. "Perfect," Helen said, snapping several photos. "God, Audrey, you look so beautiful, so free." "Helen," I said slowly, suddenly nervous, "Tyler and Rachel follow you on Instagram." "I know," she said, meeting my eyes. "Maybe it's time they saw what they've been missing." My heart started racing. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Helen lowered her phone. "Are you afraid of them seeing you happy?" The question hit me like a slap. Was I? After everything, was I still worried about making them uncomfortable by existing too loudly? "Post it," I said, surprising myself. If they see it, they see it. I'm not hiding anymore. Helen's smile was proud. That's my sister. She posted the photo from the airport, tagging me. I saw it pop up on my phone while I was making dinner. Me on that balcony, smiling, relaxed, the city behind me like a promise. The caption read, "Visiting my amazing sister in her new chapter. So proud of you, Audrey. You deserve it all. Hashtag new beginnings. Hashtag Phoenix life. Hashtag sister love." I stared at the photo for a long time. The woman in that picture looked nothing like the woman who'd stood in that Pittsburgh kitchen 6 weeks ago, feeling invisible. This woman looked real, present, alive. My phone started buzzing before I'd even finished dinner. At first, it was just a few notifications, comments on Helen's post from people I hadn't heard from in years. Then text messages started flooding in, not from old friends checking in, from Tyler, from Rachel, from Vanessa. Tyler. "Mom, where are you?" Tyler. "Call me. It's urgent." Rachel. "Mom, I need to talk to you. It's important." Rachel. "Why didn't you tell us you moved somewhere like that?" Vanessa. "Mom-in-law, saw your apartment. It looks incredible. Can we chat?" I watched the messages pile up, one after another, and felt something cold settle in my stomach. 3 months of silence. 3 months of not asking where I was or how I was doing or if I needed anything. And now, suddenly, because they'd seen a picture of a nice apartment with a good view, I existed again. I turned off my phone, finished making my dinner, pasta with homemade tomato sauce, simple and perfect. Ate it on my balcony, watching the sun set over the city I'd chosen. The city where no one knew me as just Mom, or just the quiet one in accounting. Where I was building something new. I didn't turn my phone back on until the next morning, on my way to work. 20 more messages. The tone was shifting from casual to insistent to barely concealed frustration. Tyler. "Mom, seriously, why aren't you answering?" Tyler. "That building looks expensive. Do you own it?" Rachel. "Mom, please. We just want to make sure you're okay." And then the one that made everything crystal clear. Vanessa. "Tyler told me about your new place. We'd love to talk to you about an opportunity. I think you're really going to want to hear this." An opportunity. Of course. Not "we're happy for you" or "congratulations on your promotion" or "your apartment looks beautiful." An opportunity. For them. I replied to both Tyler and Rachel with the same message. "I'm fine. Busy with work. We'll talk soon." Tyler called immediately. I watched his name flash on my screen 3 times before I answered. "Mom! Finally!" He sounded relieved and irritated in equal measure. "Why didn't you tell us you moved to such an elegant place?" "Hello to you too, Tyler," I said calmly. "Seriously, Mom, that building looks amazing. Is it a condo? Did you buy it?" "It's a rental, Tyler. Part of the company relocation package." The lie came easily. They didn't need to know I'd chosen this place, that I was paying the difference with my new salary, that every decision about my life was mine now. "Oh," he sounded disappointed. "But still, you must be doing really well. That promotion must have come with a serious raise." "It's comfortable," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Look, Mom, I'm glad we're talking. Vanessa and I were still moving forward with the med spa plan, and we were thinking if you could maybe take out a loan against your salary, or even just help us get a business loan with your credit." "Tyler," I cut him off. "No." Silence on the other end. Then, "What do you mean, no? We haven't even told you the full plan yet." "I mean, no. I'm not giving you money. I'm not taking out loans. I'm not co-signing anything. The answer is no." "Mom, you don't understand. Vanessa's family keeps comparing us to her brother. He just bought a house. Her parents think I'm a failure. We need this to work." And there it was. The truth beneath the truth. This wasn't about dreams or opportunities or family support. This was about Tyler trying to prove himself to Vanessa's family, and he wanted me to fund his ego. "Tyler," I said, and my voice was steady in a way it had never been with him before. "That's between you and Vanessa's family. It has nothing to do with me." "How can you say that? You're my mother." "Yes, I am. And for 3 months, you didn't call me once, not once. You didn't ask how I was, if I was lonely in a new city, if I needed help with anything. And now that you saw a picture of a nice apartment, suddenly I matter?" "Mom, that's not fair." "No, Tyler. What's not fair is that I only exist for you when you need something. I'm done with that. I'm done being invisible until you want money." I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but not with fear or sadness, with power, with clarity, with the pure, undiluted truth finally spoken out loud. Minutes later, Rachel called. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was careful, calculated. "Mom, I don't know what Tyler said to you, but I just wanted to visit and catch up. And Daniel and I are looking at houses. We thought maybe you could help with the down payment. It's not much, just $30,000. $30,000. Not much. I didn't call her back. Instead, I texted, "Rachel, I can't help you financially. I love you, but my answer is no." Her response came fast. "Mom, please, my marriage is falling apart. This house is our last chance to fix things." I stared at that message for a long time, feeling my heart break for her. But I also felt something else, something stronger. I typed, "Rachel, money won't fix what's broken between you and Daniel. What you need is counseling, not a house. I love you, but I can't be your financial solution." She didn't respond. That night, sitting on my balcony with the city lights spread out below me like stars that had fallen to earth, I made a decision. I wasn't going to keep running from this. I wasn't going to stay in this limbo, waiting for them to either give up or escalate. If they wanted to talk to me, they could. But it would be on my terms, in my home, with my boundaries clearly established. I picked up my phone and opened a new group text to Tyler and Rachel. "I'm inviting you both to Phoenix, next Saturday, 6 p.m., my apartment. We'll talk about everything, all of it. One time, final conversation. Let me know if you're coming. I'll send the address." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The responses came within minutes. Tyler, "We'll be there." Rachel, "Thank you, Mom. I'll come." I sat back in my chair, looking out at the city I'd chosen, the life I'd built, and knew that everything was about to change. Again. But this time, I was ready. Friday morning, I called Arthur Lewis. He'd been my lawyer for 15 years, had helped me write my will when Thomas died, had handled the small legal matters that crop up in an ordinary life. Now at 73, semi-retired, he agreed to come to my apartment the next day. "You're sure about this, Mrs. Pembroke?" he asked over the phone, his voice careful. "Completely sure, Mr. Lewis. This is very definitive. Once these papers are signed in front of them, there's no going back." "I know. That's exactly why I'm doing it." I spent Friday afternoon cleaning an apartment that was already clean. I went to the grocery store and bought ingredients for a simple dinner: roasted chicken, potatoes, a salad. Nothing elaborate. I wasn't trying to impress anyone anymore. That night, I barely slept. Not from anxiety, but from a strange kind of anticipation. Like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing you're about to jump, and feeling more alive than you have in years. Saturday arrived with a sky so blue it almost hurt to look at. I dressed carefully, black slacks, a cream blouse, my hair styled in the shorter cut I'd gotten last month. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked strong, present, real. Arthur Lewis arrived at 5:30, carrying his worn leather briefcase and wearing a suit that had probably been expensive 30 years ago. He had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and he'd always treated me with respect. "Ready?" he asked, setting his briefcase on my coffee table. "Ready. Remember, this is your home. You can ask them to leave at any moment." "I know, but I won't need to. We're going to finish this today." At exactly 6 o'clock, the doorbell rang. My heart jumped, but my hand stayed steady as I walked to the door and opened it. Tyler stood there with Vanessa. Behind them was Rachel, alone, no Daniel. They filed in silently, and I watched their eyes go immediately to Arthur Lewis sitting on my sofa, his briefcase on his lap like a silent promise. "Who's this?" Tyler asked, suspicion sharp in his voice. "This is my attorney, Mr. Arthur Lewis." I kept my voice level, calm. "Please, sit down." They sat awkwardly on the chairs I'd arranged, Tyler and Vanessa on the love seat, Rachel in the armchair. Their eyes kept darting to the lawyer, to each other, to me. The air was thick with unspoken questions. I served dinner. We ate in a silence so tense it felt like glass about to shatter. I could see Tyler and Rachel exchanging glances, some silent sibling communication about who would speak first. Vanessa maintained her professional smile, but there was calculation in her eyes. Finally, Tyler cleared his throat. "Mom, we came because we're worried about you. You've changed. You've become cold, distant. You're not the mom we knew." I set down my fork carefully. "You're right, Tyler. I'm not the mom you knew. Because that mom existed for you. This mom exists for herself, too." "Mrs. Pembroke," Vanessa jumped in, her voice honey smooth. "We're family. Families help each other through hard times. My mother really is sick. Stage 3 breast cancer. Treatment costs $8,000 a month. Insurance doesn't cover half of it. We're drowning." I felt a sharp pain in my chest at the mention of cancer. Real pain. Real sympathy. "Vanessa, I'm deeply sorry about your mother. Truly. But that doesn't change the fact that you both only reached out when you saw Helen's Instagram post. Where were you for 3 months?" "We've been busy," Tyler started. "Busy," I repeated. "Tyler, in 3 months you didn't call once. Not once. You didn't ask if I was lonely. You didn't ask if the move was hard. You didn't ask anything until you saw a photo of a nice apartment." Rachel's eyes were filling with tears. "Mom, I know we failed you. I know. But we're struggling too. Daniel lost his job 2 months ago. We're 3 months behind on rent. The kids need stability. You thought I'd fix it," I finished quietly. "Like I've always fixed everything." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights beginning to twinkle as dusk fell. My city, my choice, my life. "Let me tell you something," I said, turning back to face them. "Something I should have told you years ago." I took a breath, feeling the weight of what I was about to say. "When your father died 32 years ago, Tyler was 8, Rachel was 5. I worked 2 jobs. I skipped meals so you could have seconds. I wore the same winter coat for 10 years. I never bought myself anything that wasn't absolutely necessary." "We know, Mom," Tyler tried to interrupt. "No, you don't know, because I never told you the complete truth." I moved back to my chair, sitting down so I could look at them both directly. "I did all that because I loved you, but I also did it because I was terrified. Terrified you'd resent me the way I resented my own mother for not giving me enough. So I gave you everything. Too much." The room was completely silent now. "I never taught you to stand on your own," I continued, my voice shaking slightly but clear. "I never taught you that no is a complete sentence. I never taught you that my needs matter too. I enabled your dependence on me, and then I resented you for being dependent. That was my failure as a mother, and I'm sorry for that." Rachel was crying openly now. Tyler's face had gone pale. "But here's what I've learned," I said. "I can't fix my past mistakes by continuing to sacrifice myself. I can't save you from your own choices. Tyler, you chose to marry into a family with expectations you couldn't meet. Rachel, you chose to stay in an unhappy marriage hoping external things would fix internal problems. Those are your choices, not mine to fix." Arthur Lewis opened his briefcase with a quiet click that sounded deafening in the silence. "Mrs. Pembroke has made some legal decisions regarding her estate," he said in his measured, professional voice. He laid several documents on the coffee table. "She has established a charitable foundation called Second Chance, dedicated to supporting elderly individuals who have been abandoned by their families. She has transferred her entire life savings, approximately $285,000, to this foundation." "What?" Tyler shot to his feet. "You can't do that. That money belongs to the family." "That money is mine, Tyler," I said firmly. "I earned it. I saved it. And I decided what to do with it." Vanessa had gone white. "So there's nothing? Nothing at all?" Arthur Lewis continued calmly. "In addition, Mrs. Pembroke's will stipulates that upon her passing, all material assets, this apartment's contents, any property, any possessions, will also be donated to the foundation. She has designated a symbolic inheritance of $1,000 to each child." $1,000? Tyler's voice was a mixture of disbelief and rage. "After being your son my whole life? After everything?" I stood up. "After everything? Tyler, what everything? The years I raised you? The sacrifices I made? Those weren't investments with expected returns. That was me being your mother. That was my job, and I did it. But it doesn't mean you own my future, my money, or my peace. Rachel was sobbing now, her face in her hands. Mom, I love you. Not just for money. I really do love you. My heart cracked, but I didn't break. I know, Rachel. I love you too. But loving you doesn't mean destroying myself for you. Tyler took a step toward me, his face red with anger. You're going to end up alone, completely alone. Is that really what you want? If being alone means having peace, I said quietly, meeting his eyes without flinching, then yes, that's exactly what I want. Vanessa stood up, her professional mask finally cracking. You're a selfish woman. My mother is dying, and you could help, but you'd rather give money to strangers? Your mother is not my responsibility, Vanessa. My voice was steady. It's heartbreaking, it's unfair, but it's not my obligation to solve every problem in your life. If Tyler loves you, he'll find a way to help your mother, but that way cannot be me. Tyler moved close to me, his voice low and angry. I don't recognize you. The mom I knew was generous, loving, always there for us. The mom you knew was exhausted, Tyler. She was empty. She was disappearing, and nobody noticed until it was too late. It's not too late, Rachel said through her tears. We can still fix this. We can change. Please, Mom. Please. I walked over to her, knelt down beside her chair, and took her hands. Rachel, honey, there's nothing to fix. There's only something to accept. This is who I am now, and you either accept me this way or you don't. But I'm not going back. I stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. The universal signal. Time to go. Tyler stormed past me without a word, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles jumping. Vanessa followed, her heels clicking sharply on the hardwood floor, her face carefully blank. Rachel stood in the doorway, her eyes red and swollen. Mom, is there really no way? I cupped her face gently, the way I had when she was a little girl. No, sweetheart, there isn't. But this doesn't mean I don't love you. It means I'm learning to love myself too. She nodded slowly, then left. The door closed behind her with a soft click. I stood there for a moment, then walked to the balcony. Arthur Lewis was packing up his briefcase. That took courage, he said quietly. It took too long, I replied. After he left, I sat on my balcony as the stars came out over Phoenix. My phone buzzed, a text from Helen. How did it go? It's done, I typed back. How do you feel? I thought about it. Free? 3 months passed like water flowing downhill, naturally, inevitably, towards something better. Tyler never contacted me again. I heard through Helen that he and Vanessa were in couples counseling, that Vanessa's mother was responding well to treatment, that they'd gotten a small business loan from a bank. I was glad, not because I'd helped, but because they'd found their own way. Work was thriving. The CEO had praised my quarterly reports in a company-wide meeting. Rob and I had lunch every Friday at our favorite Korean restaurant. I'd joined a book club at the library. I went hiking twice a month with a group from work. My life was full, not with obligations or guilt or the constant weight of other people's needs, but with choices, my choices. Then, on a Wednesday morning in September, I got an email. Subject: Mom, please read. I almost deleted it, but something made me click. Mom, I've been in therapy for 2 months. Dr. Sarah Mitchell has helped me see things I didn't want to admit. You were right about everything. I didn't realize how much we hurt you until that night in your apartment. How clear you were. How firm. How free. It scared me because I finally understood that I'd lost you. Not because you moved away, but because I'd never really seen you as a person. Just as Mom. Just as the one who was always there. Daniel and I are separating. It's hard, but it's right. I'm working on myself, on being independent, on teaching my kids that love doesn't mean sacrifice. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for anything except for you to know. At least one of your children finally sees you. I love you, Mom, and I'm so sorry. Rachel. I read it 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Not sad tears, something more complicated. Grief and hope and relief all tangled together. I wrote back, Rachel, thank you. Your words mean everything. I need time to see if this change is real. But if you're willing to build a new relationship, one where I matter too, we can try. It will take time, and work from both of us. I love you. I always will. But I love you from a place of self-respect now. Mom. 2 weeks later, Rachel and I met for coffee at a small cafe in downtown Phoenix. She arrived early, sitting at a table by the window. Her hair was shorter, no heavy makeup, wearing jeans and a simple shirt. She looked younger, more real. Hi, Mom. Hi, sweetheart. We talked for 2 hours. About her therapy, about Mason and Lily, about my work and the foundation that had now helped 8 people, about the book club and the hiking group and the life I was building. Not once did she ask for money. Not once did she try to manipulate or guilt me. She just talked to me, like I was a person she genuinely wanted to know. When we parted, we hugged for a long time. Can we do this again? She asked. In a month or so? I'd like that. That evening, I sat on my balcony as the sun set over Phoenix. The sky was on fire, orange and pink and purple, colors so vivid they looked painted. My phone buzzed with a text from Rob about next Friday's lunch. Another from Arthur Lewis with an update on the foundation. One from Helen with a funny meme. The city spread out below me, full of light and life and possibility. I was 70 years old. I had a job I loved. A sister who saw me. A daughter who was trying. A friend in Rob. A purpose in the foundation. A home that was mine. I had peace. Not the peace of having everything figured out, but the peace of finally knowing that I mattered, that my life belonged to me, that boundaries weren't cruelty, they were self-respect. I raised my wine glass to the sunset, to the city, to myself. Here's to second chances, I said out loud to no one and everyone, and I meant it.